today we have Brandon Joseph, who's going to be giving us a demo of OpenStack-Helm.
Good job with the name. That's not typical. Let me see here. See if I can start sharing. I haven't shared on here before, so.
It's at the bottom of the screen and a bright green button.
Yeah, they make it really hard, don't they? Cool. Okay, cool. Sarah, you wanted me to talk about the OpenStack stuff now or later? You want me to start with the demo?
Start with the demo.
Okay, all right. So light demo, I'm going to share some slides first, just a little bit. Get this out of here. Let's see here. So we, at AT&T, we've started a project. It's something that I've been I've been wanting to do for a while, and finally landed in the right group. So changed positions and with the AIC team, or the AT&T Integrated Cloud team now. In Barcelona, we collaborated with SAP and also the Cola communities within OpenStack to talk about how we would do Cola Kubernetes at the time, and essentially just a way to deploy OpenStack via containers on Kubernetes orchestrated by Helm. That's like a mouthful. And we had some ideas on how to do this, and we also adopted some ideas from SAP at the time. They wanted to provide a cloud internally. They had some very specific things that were written. They said they really wanted to do this in the community, but they really wanted to show how they're doing it, and then focus on the community aspect later. So as part of an open source development team, we ended up taking that effort, starting it in Cola, and then started going out a little bit for some different concepts. So to kind of tell you about our philosophy, the philosophies are really what's driving the way that we're building these, because we need, as a large telecom provider, we have a very complicated OpenStack cloud, and it's very difficult to upgrade because of the intertwined dependencies. So when we're looking at Helm, we had to kind of think of things a little bit differently. So the first thing is that we don't really use Helm globals, and there's no real parent chart for everything. We want each of the charts to deploy independently, so that way an operator can piece part their own cloud the way that they need to. They may not need certain components, and we want to allow them to be able to interchange those. So the second thing is that obviously Helm manages all the installation and upgrades in this case, so you have one common source of truth. All of the OpenStack services use multiple replicas and resource definitions by default. This is in our philosophies guide, which I'll show in a minute. This is all open source. It's all available to anyone. The charts include node selectors, pod affinity, and anti-affinity for labeling, with scheduling instructions. Also, that's documented a little bit better, and I'll show you guys where to get to that, and then paste some information in there. The big thing is that we want to use the Kubernetes natives. We don't want to drop that. So we don't want to have a source of truth on our images at all. That's really important to us. We want to have a source of truth that's Kubernetes and Helm. So that also allows us to be image agnostic. So for runtime interface, runtimes like Hyper or Rocket, that should actually work in this model, and you would be afforded some of the benefits of making those choices. But that does present some problems. So now we've got to have volume-mounted config maps for configuration in a directory that we're using Etsy, and also for our startup scripts, which we're placing into a bin directory. So basically, we're laying the config maps right over where we want, starting the container the way that we want, and we've also got some plans for abstracting away from users so that users can be defined, security groups, seccomp rules, SE Linux policies, etc. So we've got a bright future, but a lot of work ahead of us. We also want to have consistent chart layouts for naming convention and for services. For instance, when you look at the project, I'll paste a link later. you'll see a config-etsy directory and a config-bin directory. So what we're essentially saying is you don't have to bring these as YAML files or anything. You can bring them as startup scripts. That also means that when you change these files or these config maps, we want to hash them. So the annotations, when you make a change to the config map, we want to start a rolling update. So that's one of the philosophies as well. For us, in building the stack, and I'll show you a deployed stack here in a moment, but we have the concept of a seed host. So we have lots of data centers and quite large. So what we're doing is starting a seed host with Kubernetes, a Kubernetes all-in-one. We're labeling it according to how we would use it internally. But what we're deploying is a Ubuntu MAS chart. So that's our bare metal provisioning. We are writing some tools that will use a single YAML file to define the hardware, and we're essentially launching a daemon set for MAS, rack, and region, and then we're launching a daemon set for Ceph, so we have persistent volume store on the back end for things like database, because we've broken up the MAS application into several components, trying to get it closer to a microservice deployment. Then what we can do is we can essentially just install hardware, and that hardware then gets booted up, and a Kubernetes deployment, now it automatically installs the host. The node receives a cluster token. It joins the Kubernetes cluster. It receives a label, depending on what role we want that to have. And then the appropriate OpenStack services just automatically join the cluster. We're going to have demos on this, video demos that are a little bit more concrete. So stay tuned for that. And I'll send out some updates to the group. But just to kind of go over everything. So we've got Helm that's showing, and like I said, this would be really basic. We'll kind of show the services that are installed, and we'll show you some things under the hood. I want to make sure that we're not approaching the time too.
So you've got just maybe 5 minutes.
Okay, all right. I want to squeeze this as quick as possible. So anyways, so we've got.
Make your screen bigger, your text bigger.
Oh, does it need to be bigger? Okay.
It's really wee chicken scratch right now.
Is it a little bit better?
It could be even bigger.
It could be bigger.
Okay, I'm running out of room. If that works, then we should be good. Can you all see that?
It's enough for us. How about the rest of people? Good enough?
Looks good here.
Okay, so our OpenStack services, we see that we have OpenStack services deployed. If you're an OpenStacker, you're going to recognize that we've got our API endpoints here and our associated ports for those. We also have our, and right now we're running one pod. In this case, in the charts, we actually want to run a default of multiple, but we see all our services are deployed. Another thing too, before I lose time, I can also install so we can launch a server. And see that the instance is starting. It's spawning. We have an associated IP address. This is on a flat network right now. If the demo could be a little bit longer, then I would show you how to connect to that. But I will have videos posted on this. We've got a lot of interest in this so far. So I think that folks from RackN are using this. So they've been posting some things out on Twitter. You might have seen some things on that. But this is the project. The project, I'll go ahead and paste this into the chat for anybody who might be interested, for you OpenStack folks. And is there any questions?
If no one else has a question, I've got one for you. How did the annotation-based forcing a rollout work for you? Are you happy with that, or would you like to see something different in Kubernetes?
Actually, that's working pretty well. Alan, I kind of let you speak in a little bit too, but that's the piece that we're using to do an automatic rolling upgrade of the service or an update of the service. We're basically passing these config maps through a hash function. Alan, you want to expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, I would say the one challenge that we have right now with it is it works, but it's a shotgun approach. So anytime there's a change to any configuration file, of course, you do a rolling update. And there could probably be scenarios in the future where we have collections of things that should not result in a rolling update. We're fine to have those just organically appear whenever there's a new container. So, I mean, we could work that continue with annotations by making like maybe a third config map definition, config map no update or something. But there could be more control, I think, at the end of the day. We could benefit from that.
Yeah, and to be really clear too, we've been working on this for about 2.5 months, 2 months really. So it's a relatively new project and really only a few people working on it. So you guys have information and obviously, I mean, we would love to have some support and have some questions out there. So please feel free to reach out to the community. We're trying to find a home for it right now. So we're talking to everybody we can to see what is the most appropriate place. At the end of the day, we definitely see this as a cloud native project, although it's difficult with OpenStack because everything is so intertwined. But we are approaching things from a very cloud native perspective, even though that term is getting abused quite a bit lately. So that's how the project is constructed.
Do we have any other questions?
I think, sorry.
Go ahead.
Could I chime in? There's something that I've been working on this project as well quite a bit, and something that I think is quite special about it as well as being able to scale up, is it also works incredibly well at a small scale, which is something that I've seen that very few other OpenStack deployments work quite well as. So for small organizations consuming Cinder and Manila and things, it makes it a much more viable proposition, which is what got me on board and so excited about it.
Yeah, we're actually doing development in Minikube. So you'll see the docs go in two different directions. They go in a getting started guide, which assumes that you can use Ceph and OVS, because containerizing OVS is a little bit wonky. But the other guide is also for Minikube, because that's just easier. It's an easier cost of entry for developers who want to just get started and commit charts. So that option's available too. But thanks for letting me share, guys. I really appreciate it.
Are you game to talk about the OpenStack Summit request that's out?
Yes. So I would like it if all of you could look out for an email from Sarah regarding, this is in the Kubernetes Sig OpenStack mailing list or group. There is an open source day that's being kind of constructed, if you will, for the OpenStack Summit. The deadline to sign up is February 20th. It appears at first glance that this is to get the communities to really start engaging with one another. So if you have any particular, if you have a particular project that spans across both groups, then there will be some time set up where there can be some collaboration and so forth. Is there anything else you want me to share on that to you?
Mostly just the thread is out there to find out who's doing what at OpenStack Summit relating to Kubernetes and OpenStack intersections, as well as who is interested in putting in a little more effort to help make this open source day go.
Yeah, and just some color here. Mark Lear reached out as well, and I've sort of coordinated. CNCF has kindly donated $6,000 to record any Kubernetes Day sessions. So we can do, I think, 9 sessions that can be recorded and generally distributed. So that resource is available if you decide to do something with it.
So linked in the notes is the email thread that this is being discussed on. It would be awesome if people chimed in with what they're already doing, what they're willing to do, who's engaged, etc.
Sounds good.
All right. Brandon, thank you very much. This was a great demo.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming. Elsie, are you online?
I am.
Welcome. You're going to tell us about 1.6 release, right?
I am. Dan and Caleb are out today, so I'm the poor substitute. So I have some notes from them. They wanted me first and foremost to emphasize that we really need to fill the roles on Dan's release team. This is super critical to the release state staying what it is currently. If you have the capacity to fill one of these roles, please do so. You can volunteer by adding yourself to the doc that's linked in the agenda. Some other things of note, we really need all of the SIGs to have the GitHub users, the GitHub teams, and the Google group mailing lists, so issues can be routed effectively. If you have any problems doing that, please reach out to Contrivax, and we'd be more than happy to help. And then we have some E2E tests that need some SIG owners, and we're looking for volunteers to own those.
Thank you, Elsie. This is all very important stuff. No one gets a release until these things are done. So
yeah,
please chip in.
There were some drop dead dates that were set last week in the notes as well. We really, really want to make sure we have the release team decided, and I believe the date was, I'm not going to remember now. It's in the notes, but I'm not finding it. Oh, 2/9, there we go. So we want to make sure we have these done when 2/9, by the way, is today. So we need to do this or we really jeopardize the release date. So volunteers. And for those of you who don't actually volunteer, you will get no chocolate from me, A. And B, you will also no longer get to call me and tell me how terrible this project is in ways A through Z. So you need to step up and chop wood and carry water with the rest of us.
And we made it's easy. If you heard it was hard last time, it's 3 times easier because we divided the responsibilities across 3 people. Thank you, Saad, for doing that. So it's 3 times easier. Jump in and help.
We also have proof that Saad survived the experience. So,
I'm a droid.
He blinked. He's not just a photo.
So please do step up and help and fill in those release roles.
And Saad, I think that's a good chance for you to tell us how swimmingly and pleasantly things are going with 1.5 and how much you enjoyed the experience of being a release manager.
1.5 was a lot of fun. It was actually a lot of fun being involved in the release. 1.53 is planned for this Friday. All cherry picks should have been approved by Wednesday. I went through yesterday and approved most of them. The submit queue is currently blocked. Phil Whitrock is the build cop this week, but I believe he's out, and Jessie is filling in for him, and she's looking at that. Hopefully that gets unblocked soon, and the pending PRs get merged. If not, I'll just go in and start to manually merge the 1.5 PRs. And then hopefully we will cut 1.53 tomorrow. If you have any outstanding cherry picks, please ping me directly on Slack. Get a hold of me very quickly because we're kind of already past the deadline. So if it's super critical, please get in touch with me. And I'm not sure if Jess is online, but pretty much the same story.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, it's the same as far as when we're going to do the release for the next 1.4. And I think everything should be in, and if not, I'll do the same and merge if the submit queue doesn't get unblocked. But I did just merge something that will hopefully unblock it. But if you have any ideas as to if that doesn't work, you feel free to ping me or whatever on Slack or on a PR.
Okay. And if anyone out there is just on the fence thinking maybe I want to do this release thing, but I'm scared about being on the critical path for such an important project, I've got your back. Saad's got your back. If you can use Git and GitHub and build stuff with Go and ask questions to people when you don't know what you're doing, then you can probably do the release role. We won't be mad at you if you take a while to do it. We'll be happy that you stepped up. So if you're on the fence, please jump in on that. Kubernetes works because we have a great community. All right. On that diatribe, I will move on to SIG updates. Chris Nova, are you here? And would you like to go first?
Sure, I can go first. So this would be an update from Sig AWS. A couple of high-level things we'll go over. The first one is we're starting to focus on updating the current community-driven documentation for SIG, for AWS as a whole in the eyes of Kubernetes. So that's going to span across updating the cloud provider documentation that I know that Joe and Heptio have a use case for. We're going to start exploring some Kube2IM stuff, and so we would probably have some exploratory work around that. Networking in AWS is one of our goals for the year, so I personally would like to see that go through. And I know CoreOS has done some stuff on reference architecture as well, so trying to amalgamate those and get documentation up to date. Also, we're working on helping Heptio with the new plan for a new solution they have in mind, which is AWS CloudFormation plus KubeADM. So we're in the works of kind of figuring out how that's going to play out. Also, there's an update on COPS. We had a release earlier this week. It's our first release since early December. We're abstracting out a lot of new features, so users have a lot more control over network topology and network configuration in general. And we are currently trying to get our goals documented into the community repository as well. There's a PR that's been out there for a while that I'm going to follow up on. But those are the high-level updates if nobody has any questions.
Thank you, Chris. You could always put a question on the chat for Zoom and we'll come back to it. Let's move on. Ihor, are you here to talk about SIG PM?
Yes, I'm here. So as we have initially discussed last week and before, the Kubernetes PM working group has been promoted to the SIG status. The actual link to the community repo is pasted in the meeting notes, and I paste it into our chat. So if you have any questions regarding that, feel free to ask them in the mailing list or in Slack. I would like also to say my personal kudos to Aparna and Caleb who co-driven this new SIG, and I would like to receive more feedback from the community regarding that.
Igor, am I right that this SIG PM has just been established? And if so, could you just give us 2 sentences telling us what it's like if we haven't, for people that are not aware of what you do?
Well, so in general, the Kubernetes PM SIG will cover the same areas as we had with PM working group, so people who are aware of what working group did, so they won't find anything new. The main reason for establishing the SIG was to follow in the guidelines for the SIGs. So we are going to have the regular meetings, probably weekly or weekly. We are going to follow the general guidelines with the teams, with their responsibilities, with the leads, and so on. In general, Kubernetes PM group will focus on the areas that are covered, but that are not covered by any SIG, especially in the areas that not require writing some code, but in more management areas, in areas regarding the communication with the customers, with the community, to fill the gaps where we can make the Kubernetes as a product much more awesome.
Okay, thank you, Ihor. And someone has pointed out in chat that I can go read about it on Kubernetes community as well. So thank you very much. I'm not sure if Tomaj or Napierla or Joseph Jax is here.
I know Joseph wasn't able to, and I don't think Tomaj was. I didn't get an ACK anyway. But we also have a further update from Pat Christopher, who I think is on. Pat? Maybe not.
We'd also take Pooja if you're here.
Yeah, I'm here. Pat didn't seem to make it. I'm not sure if I can give an update on Sig on-prem because I wasn't there last week.
That's
But
fine.
generally, what we wanted to maybe check out is that KubeCon Europe, we want to do some face-to-face again. And if we, again, will have some kind of overview sheet where we avoid collisions with other SIGs that want to do face-to-face. And or if anyone has planned something, so we can just coordinate the SIGs and the face-to-face meetings.
I don't know of anyone who has set up a tracking spreadsheet for that. I bet we could repurpose the one that Ehor set up for KubeCon in Seattle, or at least duplicate it and use it again. Is that something?
Yeah, that would be cool.
Ehor?
Yeah, I can donate my spreadsheet from Seattle. So, yeah, let me share the link. Share it in the community meeting notes.
Yep.
Same time.
Maybe set a new tab in it or something. Excellent. Thanks for the suggestion, Pooja and Pat.
Thank you.
Are we going to Paul Morey next?
We are.
Paul, are you here?
What's up? It's me.
What's up, Paul?
I'm gonna put a link into the chat. So my discussion topic is that in Sig Service Catalog, we have made a new incubator repo, as many of you have probably at least heard of, for this Kubernetes Service Catalog. And we found during that experience that the incubator process is really helpful from a standpoint of like defining when you should make an incubator repo. Those of you that aren't familiar with the incubator process, there are like two main roles that are defined. There's the repo sponsor, which basically is one of the owners of Kubernetes that like is where the incubator project derives their authority to exist from. And then there's the repo champion role, which is basically someone who's a maintainer of Kubernetes, and part of that person's responsibility is to educate the folks working in the incubator on what the community norms and practices are, which sounds super awesome. However, none of the community norms and practices are defined, at least vis-a-vis that document. And so I opened an issue with a call to action to help close some of those gaps, specifically ones that we hit during the process of getting the. Someone needs to mute, maybe? All right, sounds good. Okay. During the process of our first couple months working on this incubator repo. So do check out the issue. Let me see. Let me jog my memory and see what those gaps were at a high level.
Paul, I read your doc at a high level, and I have a one sentence of what I think it means. Tell me if I'm right.
I'm listening.
We built a bunch of robots and standards and tools and contribx. Probably new projects should use those unless there's a good reason not to.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think I would add to that a couple things. So some context that I should have provided probably when I started talking is that the folks that work in Service Catalog SIG generally, when they started, were people that were very new to the community. So some of the gaps that I discussed in that document seem like second nature to me after working on this project for more than 2 years. Not at all obvious if you have not been doing that. So some of the things that we ran into, for example, were things like, what should the review process for pull requests be? Which robots should you always use and why? What's the policy, if any, towards checking in generated code? and some more kind of fundamentals about Kubernetes, like when and how do you build an API server? How do you write a controller? I know that at least a couple of those things that I just named that are technical facets, we're doing some work on, and some like there was a controller document that I managed not to find, so part of that's on me. But do take a look. I think that one reason that it's going to be really important to close some of these gaps and at least provide guidance about, hey, there's a process, you should use it, or you should do whatever you want, and it's totally cool. One of the reasons that we want to do that is, as probably almost everybody on this meeting is aware, the core is getting really, really big. And we're moving towards an extension pattern where to extend Kubernetes, instead of modifying the core, you build a Kubernetes-like thing which exists outside the core, has its own API server that gets aggregated together and presents this like single endpoint that just gives you all the APIs, all the discovery of those APIs together as one big thing. And if you think about like play the movie out 6-12 months for that pattern, it at least in my brain, it kind of indicates that we're going to have a lot of new folks that are joining the development side of the community in the incubator repos rather than in the Kubernetes repo itself. So as part of making that process of getting up to speed on things really easy and make people feel like they want to work on it, not that they're working on it because they have to, that their employer told them they have to, we should just try to provide this kind of information up front and set specific expectations where norms should be followed or where discretion is, available. EOF.
Thank you, Paul. You touched on a bunch of good ideas there, and I hope everyone takes a look at your doc, and maybe we can unwrap that into some actionables. And I think we should have a discussion about this again. If you are somebody who has just started doing an incubator other than service catalog, and you have feedback on the experience and want to talk about it, reach out to me, Eric Toon, or Sarah, or Paul, and we'll make sure you get a chance to talk about it at a future meeting as well. Thanks.
So there was another point in there that Paul made, which is the core definition is underway, and this is in the notices section of our notes. The core definition is underway. If you are part of the Kubernetes dev mailing list, you can take a look at the document, and we want lots and lots of feedback on it. So please send more on.
But I would say it's in a state where you have to sort of be brave and have some context to even read the doc. So another thing I would ask for is, if you have built a distribution or a hosted or a managed version of Kubernetes, or built your own on-prem thing and didn't understand what parts you had to implement and what parts you didn't have to implement, please talk about your experience and what questions you had, because ultimately I don't want a core doc to be like a dense prescriptive document. I want it to be a guide that says, hey, I want to do Kubernetes too. What things do I have to do?
All right. I think we're actually running low on open topics. Plus 9,000 from Aaron Krickenberg. Wow, and an infinity. Wow, that's fancy typing. I don't know how to make an infinity in the chat window. All right.
It's just two O's next to each other.
Oh, okay, it is just two O's. I see. Apparently I'm too far from the screen. Is there anyone else who has topics that they wanted to bring up? We have 10 minutes or so.
If Tim St. Clair is on, we had a topic that came up at Sig Scale this morning that is probably worth a quick mention.
We have that listed in notices, but Tim, go for it.
All right.
Just a quick PSA, if you're not monitoring your etcd instance IOP rate, I highly, highly recommend that you start doing that. On large-scale clusters and some of our validations, we had found that there's a jump of between 4 and 5 times the number of IOPS, mainly on writes. Well, we root caused it. We know what the problem is, but we're going to have a discussion on how we want to fix things. I know Clayton is going to set up a meeting to cross a couple of SIGs. So in the coming week, we should probably have a discussion about how we want to address this issue.
And I see a note in here from Jason that making sure that SIG cluster ops is part of that is important too.
Okay.
There's also, not an etcd version. Okay, so Pavel got his answer from Aaron.
Yeah, the root cause of the problem is in 1.4, we added quorum reads to a number of different resource objects in the system, and that causes a write. So.
Whoops. All right, any other topics? Okay, we can go through a couple of quick notices then. There's a discount code in the community meeting topics agenda document, the thing we all use and reference for this. And there is a discount code for 10% off of a corporate ticket if you need to still purchase tickets going to KubeCon. I mentioned core definition underway. Apparently SIG cluster ops is moving to a 2-week cadence for a bit. There is a meeting today, so come by and there's a full agenda. And then lastly, we have a confirmed date for the Leadership Summit, which is Friday, 6/2, and it'll be in San Jose at the Samsung campus. This is the same week as Core OS Fest in San Francisco. So people that are already traveling to Core OS Fest that are invited will hopefully be able to just extend their trip by a day. The invites to that will be going out to the special interest group leads and then top company contributor technical leads from the large company contributors that are, I shouldn't say the large company contributors, the large contributors who happen to be companies. So those will be going, the save the date will be going out in the next week to the invite list for the Leadership Summit. This is a different idea than the Dev Summit. This is more about the leadership of the project at a broad sense, including things like governance, project technical leadership and vision, and the focus is trying to make sure we collect the right people together and have a smaller group even than we did at the Dev Summit. We will be repeating the Dev Summit at KubeCon in Austin. I will have more information about that as that gets nailed down to a venue as well. Anyone else have questions or comments? All right, we may have a short agenda today. We're good to go?
Okay. Thank you, Sarah. I don't see any other questions on chat. So thanks everyone for coming.
See you next week.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.